Today we're going to attempt to put a sport bar on the new Toyota Tacoma. This is the sport bar that I've had on a couple of other trucks. I'm going to be very interested to see if it will actually fit on the new Tacoma. I've got the lift lowered. I'm going to kind of pick it up and pull it to the back of the truck, so hopefully nothing bad happens there. My concern is the width of the bed. It should be okay. I might have to widen the sport bar itself, and whether or not I can do that is a whole nother question. It's been exposed to the elements for a while, so it might be almost kind of fused, if you will. But we're gonna see. I'm gonna put you guys on a tripod or something, and I'll show you how I'm gonna do this. Well, it fits. Only hit my head once up there on the top. That's a bummer. Wow. I think it looks pretty good. It's not fully seated, if you will, yet. And my big concern was this extension, if you will, or hat, whatever you want to call it. But looks to me like it does fit. Now, of course, I've got some finagling to do, and I have to move my tie down there, which is not a big deal. This one, it actually fits on the inside, so we do have quite a gap here, but it's not fully set in place either, so got a little bit of finagling to do when it comes to stuff like that. But it does appear that it's going to fit. The only thing now is where these slots line up right here in the tracks to be able to bolt it in. But I am encouraged. So far, so good. Okay, I've got it all positioned where I want it. This is what it's going to look like, basically. And we have to do the fasteners. I decided to go a different way this time around. These roll bars, are sport bars, are kind of universal. So you notice there's a gap here, right? If I tighten that down against this track, it's going to push the roll bar edge here out, hanging over the edge of the truck. I don't want that. I want it to be relatively close to what it is up there in the front, like this. See how it kind of sits a little bit inside the rail? And as we go down, it kind of spreads out and it hangs over the rail. Now, keep in mind, the rail does get narrower back here, so obviously it's gonna have to stick out either on the inside or the outside. That's just the way it is. Not a big deal. The way that I'm gonna fasten it down this time, I have some bolts that I'm gonna put in to these slots here, and they're going to connect up with a nut. Now, the nut looks like this. What do they call these things? Flanged hex nuts, or hex nuts, I should say. Let's grab the one I just lost halfway across the floor. You ever notice when you drop something, it always takes off? It's like it's trying to get away, right? So a flanged hex nut looks like this. What I did is, in order to keep the nut inside the track, I mean, you have to fit inside the track here, right? In other words, it's got to be able to stay behind the rails and not pop out one way or the other. I took a washer that fits inside, a couple of small pieces of double-sided tape to hold the washer onto the flange nut until I get it screwed in. It's all for positioning purposes, I guess, and it worked really well. I've got all of the nuts and washers in the track. I actually use the pedal commander box as my spacer on each side. Gives me about that much clearance, I guess, and I do want some clearance. Keep in mind the bed does articulate, not that much, but I did want some clearance between the top of the sport bar and the top of the truck. These pedal commander boxes worked perfectly for that. So now what I have to do is run some screws into the nuts, but I do have to take up some space. If I tighten these down, as I mentioned, it's just gonna pull these things most likely towards the edge, I'm thinking. We'll have to test that theory maybe, but what I'm gonna do is use some washers in between that cover or span the gap here of the track. Those will take up the space, and I should then be able to fasten this down with exactly the gap that I want, or even pull them in a little bit more to kind of compensate for this edge. We'll see if it works. All right, got the sport bar all bolted down. I will be painting the hardware that you see there. I did have to put a few spacers, if you will, on in the form of washers. Actually, if I'd have gone with shorter screws, I wouldn't need all those washers. Maybe I'll change it later, I doubt it. Now, I have to hook up that third brake light up there. To do that, you want to pull the tail light, which I have done, and it's held on the same way as the old style were, with these little nubs here, and then they push into these little clip areas here. And then there are two screws, one here and one here. I'll show you over on the other one. One here and one here to take off, the only two screws you can take out, I guess. And that allows you to then pull the tail light off this way. One little note in doing it, I kind of created a little rub or a chip right there. Part of the perils of modding, I guess. Anyway, I've got it off. Now I need to splice in my third brake wire, which is here. And I'm going to do that with one of those little clips, little splices. It's the green wire that you can see here that I want. That's the brake light. That's what's going to trigger the third brake light up there, obviously, when I hit the brake light. So I'm going to go ahead and put one of those on, and then connect this wire back up to the wiring from the third brake light, which, by the way, runs down the tube out the bottom in the corner right there, and then I've just run it underneath the rail. I'll bring it through up underneath here. Typically, and I hope it's the same, there's a gap up here where you can get through. I think I'll be okay. All done, everything's wired. Made a mistake in something I told you guys earlier. It's not the green wire that you want to tap into. It is the white wire right here on the plug. So not the green one you can see there, but rather the white one, no stripe, so it's not the one with the black stripe. Solid white wire is what you want to tap into. I just tapped into it using that little tapper thing, and that's it. I grounded it with a nut onto an existing screw here. Now I just put it all back together. We'll be done. I am completely finished. This whole project took me probably, I don't know, 4 hours, maybe more, but it is done. You guys can see it is on, it is wired. The extra wire that you see there was for lights that I had in the sport bar once before. I don't think I'm gonna put any kind of lighting up top this time. I really haven't decided, and if I do, it's gonna be different than what I had before. So I left the wires there in the meantime. Of course, I still have to paint the hardware black just to make it disappear, if you will. But love the look of this on the truck. Again, I think it's better than it was on the other trucks. I'll leave some pictures at the end. You guys can check them out. Let me know what you think. Do you like it? Does it look better than when I've had it on previous versions? I'd be curious to know. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.